Hello, friends. Welcome to Block Bytes. Blockchain technology we all love and hate is centered around the blockchain trilemma. Amongst the three parameters, arguably decentralization is the most important, as the entire concept or the idea of blockchain is to build a trustless system devoid of any centralizing vector, human or otherwise. I don't know about you, but I have never been able to get credible and consistent information around the level of decentralization on blockchains. This begs the question, how does one go about measuring decentralization? It is a complex question to answer and has even become more difficult as the blockchain tech has advanced. The Nakamoto coefficient is the most widely used measurement of decentralization in blockchains and is defined as the minimum number of entities required to disrupt a blockchain's network. A high Nakamoto coefficient means that the blockchain is more decentralized. This coefficient was first proposed by Balaji Srinivasan, ex-CTO of Coinbase, and comprises of three steps. First, list the number of essential subsystems of a decentralized system, like blockchains. Second, find out how many entities within each subsystem need to be compromised to control that subsystem. And number three, use the minimum of these as the effective decentralization score for the entire system. He goes on to propose that for blockchains, the essential subsystems are mining, the amount which refers to the amount of rewards users get for mining, clients, the number of users for each client software, developers, the number of commits made by developers on the chain, exchanges, the amount of token volume made on exchanges in a set amount of time, nodes, the node distribution across geographies, and owners, the distribution of token across individual addresses. We also need to determine the minimum threshold for takeover. How much of any subsystem is needed to sway it? The standard number here is 51%, but it could be different depending on the blockchain. Mostly, you can assume that the Nakamoto coefficient formula uses 51% as its minimum threshold. Once you have all this information for each subset, you will then need to find the minimum number of entities whose proportional control adds up to 51% or whatever that threshold is. This number becomes the Nakamoto coefficient for blockchain decentralization. Here is an example from Balaji's 2017 block, where he compared Bitcoin and Ethereum. So the minimum number of entities required to corrupt is 1 for both Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it is coincidentally in the client subsystem. The theory is well laid out, but there are practical problems. The biggest problem or the biggest question I have is that if blockchains are publishing their own Nakamoto coefficient, how can I trust these values? Or if any private party is publishing this information, how can I trust their data? Also, most of the data around Nakamoto coefficient is centered around either mining or validators. What about other subsystems? Are we to assume that the miners or the validators is the most vulnerable subsystem across blockchains? Besides, if we can't even agree on what TPS means for blockchains, how can we agree on decentralization? This seems counterintuitive is the entire blockchain industry was built on the premise of trustlessness, and that ambiguity can be removed by removing humans and intermediaries from the equation. But no one has seemed to have done this when it comes to measuring the Nakamoto coefficient. Will this change? Perhaps. Recently, the University of Edinburgh School of Informatics, along with Input-Output Group, the company behind Cardano, announced that they will be working on the Edinburgh Decentralization Index. This index, like Nakamoto coefficient, will also measure the decentralization of blockchains. The EDI follows the same philosophy and approach as the Nakamoto coefficient. However, it also addresses the trustlessness issue by making it an open academic exercise with a well laid out approach, as well as data sourced directly from blockchains. The University of Edinburgh will treat this as a research project and has developed a roadmap comprising of different phases. Number 1, research methodology. This phase will focus on how blockchains will be researched from a decentralization point of view. This is important as not all blockchains are the same. Number 2, develop a framework or a system that will get the data and analyze it. Number 3, define and develop the metrics. Number 4, gather the data in real time from each blockchain and apply the framework to it. And finally, present it in a using a visual interface to the users. This is exactly what is needed to capture this important parameter. An open, easy to access and understandable visual representation of decentralization amongst the different blockchains is the need of the hour. For most blockchains, decentralization is the key, which means that the measurement of this parameter must also be decentralized and open. The EDI could help bring much needed focus and standardization of the measurement of decentralization. I hope you like this video. Relevant links are in the description. Consider liking and sharing, and I will see you next time with another fresh bite. Bye-bye.